Daiso markers. Let's rewind a little bit. Last week-ish, more like 2 weeks ago, we were at Lightbox Expo, a new art and illustration and animation convention in Pasadena, California. It was really fun and interesting, and there were a lot of animators showing their stuff, and the artist alley area was gigantic, but we were in a smaller area with all the fancy brand booths like Adobe, DreamWorks, Netflix. I had a 10x10 corner booth, and I filled it up with everything I could bring in my 4 pieces of luggage that were free because shipping merch is expensive. And one of the things I love about California is that they have a lot of Japanese shops, and I am a gigantic weeb, so we went to Daiso, which is a Japanese dollar store where everything is $1.50 unless noted. And I saw these markers and I thought they would make a great video, so I bought them together with more display items for my table and a lot of Japanese snacks, and we went our merry way hoping that we would sell enough merch to put all of this in our luggage. I also saw a $250 Pikachu that I totally wanted, but I don't have that kind of money, and I would have had to get him a plane ticket so he would sit next to me on the plane home. Okay, Fluently illustration markers. 2 markers come in each pack. They have 2 tips, a chisel 7mm one and a 1mm nib one. We have the colors named right here, and this little line on the side basically means alcohol type markers with good colors and quick drying. On the back we also have all the information in Japanese, English and Portuguese. Now for our color palette, we have orange, yellow, pale orange, red, light purple, pink, water blue, ultramarine, light green, green, yellow ochre, dark brown, light cool gray, light warm gray, medium cool gray, medium warm gray, black, and a clear blender, which the package claims you can use to easily create blurs and gradients. I got all the markers that were there available at the store, and I actually went to a second one and picked up one that I didn't have on the first shop. So I think that this is the complete palette. Let's get them all out of the bags and organize in a rainbow fashion, and let's take a look at the nibs. The nibs look sturdy, a little bit fuzzy, very stiff, and looks like they will stand a lot of use. The names of the color are on the cap, and honestly it doesn't feel like a super cheap marker, to be honest. They feel very similar to touch markers in terms of weight and sturdiness. Now it's time to swatch them. The colors are very accurate compared to the chip colors of the markers, but I do recommend to always swatch your colors before working so you avoid any accidents. I also swatched the clear marker to see how much ink it had, if it was dried up, but it looked fine. Now these markers bleed through. A bit of bleeding through is common with alcohol markers, but these were a little bit stronger than the blue Copic that I swatched to compare. Now besides these markers, I also grabbed 2 more items. First is a twin brush pen, double-ended with black and gray inks. This is a very standard hard brush nib with the little extra of the gray color. The tip is absolutely gorgeous, it's very easy to control and with lots of width variations on the line. And you can get a really fine line with it. I also got a set of highlighters with fruit scents. They smell divine. Not much to say about these, I just love highlighters. Next, I had to test their grading capability. This was kinda difficult. The blender didn't quite act like a blender. It acted more like those magical changing markers, lightening up the color, as if the marker is more bleachy than filled with alcohol to get the colors to mix. so every time I tried to do a gradient with it, it lightened the color. I tried laying down colors first and then using the blender, wetting the paper with the blender, then adding the colors, and in the end, I think the best look was to just blend the colors without the clear blender. Not all colors are best to blend together, unlike you can do with Copics that you can mix any kind of weird colors together. I would recommend to stick to the lighter colors if you want to do a gradient. I even tried blending them with Copics, which wasn't bad, but it wasn't great either. But I think that I will use them as if I were using the Prismacolors, which I generally don't do a lot of gradients with them, but you can still do something beautiful with it. Again, if you're gonna try to do gradients yourself in your illustration, I recommend to try the gradient first on a separate piece of paper to make sure that it will work out. Now these markers are very juicy, so let colors dry before you put them next to each other, or even layering if you want them to mix. You can see it on these little Pikachus that I did. Surprisingly, the colors bled a lot more on Bristol paper than on the cheaper printer paper. And the contrast, the saturation was very different as well. So I decided to bring out the alcohol marker pad, which is the recommended type of paper to use with alcohol markers. I decided that this would be the type of paper to use for my illustration. So I want to do just something simple and cute and maybe a little fashionable. First I'm doing a rough sketch to get the idea of the pose and her hair design and clothing with one of my cute cuties pens, a little bit of merch there. I'll be using Copic marker paper and first sketch it out with a Pentel Red lead mechanical pencil. Next up, I'll be inking her. I used the brush pen for a little bit, but I'm more comfortable using Copic Multiliners, so I jumped back onto those. I'm using 3 different ones, 0.05, 0.1 and 0.3mm ones. I'm inking the whole thing and letting it dry because I don't want it to smudge. I am so surprised how nice it is to color with these markers. I normally don't like hard nibs. I much prefer to color with the softer brush nibs from the Copics, the Trabi markers, but these markers are pretty cool. I am adapting my usual coloring style to what can be done with these markers, so I'm not expecting to be able to do a lot of soft gradients. But not all tools do the same, so it's best to use their tool to their best potential. Now I love this pink color. It's really nice for the coloring palette I like to use. The ultramarine was a little bit too blue, so I used a cool gray on top of it to tone it down. At first it looked a little bit streaky, but I found out that if I saturated the paper with ink, the streaks will disappear. I changed the colors a little bit. I wanted to add more colors on her top so it didn't look too monochromatic. And I also got my highlighter to give a little bit of pink under her chin because I love using highlighters on my illustrations. I added some details with a white pen, but later I colored on top of it because I felt the white was a little bit too much contrasting. I had a little bit of trouble coming up with a background, but I wanted to do something simple, so I am happy with how it ended up. And that's it! If you have a Daiso near you, or you visit an area where there's one, and you're looking to try alcohol art markers, I definitely recommend these. All 18 markers cost me about $13 before tax. Would you like to try them out? Do you like how it turned out? Let me know in the comments below. I want to thank my Patreon subscribers who helped me create art and comics with their generosity. You can also join my Patreon to unlock extra content. So, thank you for watching. And October is around the corner, so that means Inktober is also coming up. Bye bye!